What up, nation? Welcome to another edition, the first edition of 2020 of the NBA DFS Wise stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I am joined once again by the GOAT, the true OG. You know him as Paulie D. Not a damn thing changed. Paulie, what's happening, bro?
What's happening? Happy New Year once again.
Yeah.
Twin, doing it dirt. Somebody make a tournament today.
That would be a great way to start the new year. Be a phenomenal way to start the new year. Welcome, nation, to the 2020 edition of WiseTake, the WiseTake Nation. Here to do dirties. Dropping them, doing them. Neighbors all across the country are terrified. That's how we do it. We have a little 4-game slate, early start. Should be interesting. We're getting some news. This is a small slate where news is pretty pivotal, and there's a lot of stuff we're waiting for. We've gotten some of it. We're getting it slowly, but there's quite a bit of information. There's one team that we know is missing basically almost all of their starters, at least they're all of their high usage starters, kind of leaving them bare. So there's a lot to discuss. What are your overall thoughts from a macro perspective?
Macroeconomically speaking, the slate provides a ton of value in the Minnesota situation, similar to like Golden State yesterday. And we're waiting to see just who is going to be the plays out of Minnesota. You know, Trayvon Graham, Noah Vonleh, Okigi, all game time decisions. And, you know, how that all plays out will kind of dictate who we like from Minnesota. I mean, I think Culver and Covington and Napier are fairly, optimal at this point, but it could get deeper, just opening up more value and creating kind of an interesting stars and scrubs opportunity. It's only 4 games, so, as like yesterday, you really want to cover as many different game flows that are possible. Like yesterday, Gary Harris got ruled out for Denver, and like I played some Beasley, and I played some the guy who started at shooting guard. I can never remember his name, and like didn't play a ton of Monty Morris at 1%. That was my best team yesterday, and like you really needed like him or Maxi Kleber, 2 pretty obscure plays on the slate to really win a tournament yesterday. And it may be the same today. It may be somebody just deeper on the bench that you're not expecting, like Garrison Matthews from Washington the other day. So 4 games, 100 and plus teams, you should be able to get just a couple exposures to those different game flows. If this game blows out, then who on Milwaukee will get more minutes, stuff like that. And I think that's kind of how you got to approach the slate. Grab a core of the value and then just a bunch of everybody else.
Just dirty it all up. No, I do agree. It's a kind of a weird slate. You get the feeling that something weird is going to win it, but it's still decent. There's some decent plays, and we're starting to get more of these. We're starting to get a little bit more separation as we get the news. Obviously, Aaron Gordon, we know, has just been ruled out. That helps. We know the Minnesota guys are out, but there's also Bradley Beal, who's a game time decision. That game is first, but you'd like to get that as early as possible so you can prepare. Because the prices of his teammates are now raised and his is down. So there's some decisions to make. It's pretty interesting. We'll go ahead and jump in this thing. We'll go game by game just so I can adjust the projections as we go in case we get some news. If you're new to the channel, real quick before we dive in this, make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications bell so you're notified whenever we do go live. We do all kinds of free content on the channel. You don't want to miss out when we do go live, which is Monday through Friday. We do a couple shows. I think like 3 shows a day typically in some format. So do the dirty, go check it out. If you need more help, you're looking to become a better DFS player for real, trying to take it seriously, go check us out at WiseTake.com. We're a DFS content provider as well as a community design to help make you a better player. We have projections, cheat sheets, articles, all that good stuff for you, depending on size of the slate. But as always, projections are available with the day pass. If you're subscribed to WiseTake.com, make sure, if you're watching the show, keep posted. I'll let you know as I update them so that you can get it in as late as possible and get the latest and greatest. With that said, everybody smash that like button right now. Everybody, right now. Like. Everybody hit the like. If you're watching right now, hit the like. Hit the like hard. Hard. Real hard. Paulie, let's start off with this first game, which, of course, is the Orlando Magic visiting the Washington Wizards. Total in this game is 221.5, up from 217, despite the fact that Gordon was ruled out. Orlando opened up -4.5 on the road, down to 4. Uh, what do you like from the Orlando side?
Yeah, so the Orlando side's kind of interesting to me today. Unfortunately, it's the Island first game, so it's probably going to get a little more ownership than it normally would. But I want to be overweight on the Orlando side. With Gordon off, you kind of get solid usage rates for the price on Vooch, Isaac, and Fournier, and even like Markel Fultz and DJ Augustine, Terrence Ross, like those seven guys, those six guys, the main guys I'm really trying to get pieces of. Probably looking for like a big with a small kind of combo, like Fultz plus Isaac, Fultz plus Vucevic, or Augustine with either one of those, or Ross, some combination where they correlate point guard getting an assist to the big guys. And, especially if Beal plays, I think the likelihood of the game staying close is stronger. And, you know, that would make me like the Orlando side a little better. If Beal's out, you know, I don't want to predict the blowout, but it just like I don't know if like the scoring will be as high. I'll put it that way. So I'm hoping Beal's in. I'll be into the Magic side and 2 to 3 kind of Magic on a team. Maybe run back with varying different amounts of Washington today.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know me, I always like the late games, but this is a situation that's hard to ignore. They're playing one of the best fantasy teams in the game. They're missing Gordon. These guys are getting monster minutes in a close game script, so I agree with you. The Beal news is kind of important because if Beal is ruled in, I like him quite a bit. We'll talk about that in a second, but I agree. I think I'm going to go back and update the core players articles to incorporate more of the Magic now that we have the news. But the pricing for guys like Terrence Ross, Evan Fournier, Isaac, like these guys are projecting really well right now on a slate where not a ton is. So definitely at the top of the list, pace up, matchup, everything makes sense. I think from a standpoint of our projections in terms of like rankings, at the moment it looks like Terrence Ross we have as one of the top. Fournier is really close, and then Isaac, Fultz, Augustine, all at like 5.7x, which on this slate is like kind of high, and then Vooch at 5.6, which for a guy at his price is high. So I think as of right now, you'll end up with a good chunk of the Magic, and I think that's optimal at this point. Let's go to the Washington side, Paulie. I know we're waiting on the Beal news, but talk to me about some if-thans.
Yeah, the Beal news is really big for me. One thing I noticed over the last 2 weeks, Orlando is last in DVP to the point guard. So that could be Beal, that could be IT2, that could be Jordan McRae, that could be Gary Payton, could be Ish Smith, right? It's like everything gets a lot easier if Beal plays, I think, because you go to him. And then I think you grab a little bit of IT2, should get the next most minutes, always a high usage player. Hard to pay 5.8 for Jordan McRae. I think hard to pay 5.5 for Gary Payton, and Ish Smith down at 4.4 on DraftKings. I don't mind. I know on an FD some of these prices are much lower on those guys, and they're kind of all jumbled in there. But I'll have a little bit of all of these guys with McRae and Payton very, very low owned, like 2-3%. IT2-ish, probably in like the 10 to 15 range, and Brad Beal may go as high as like 40 if he's in. Then the bigs, there aren't many, but I think you got to play a little bit of John Mahimi right now. He's just all they got, and Vooch not really like this big time stopper. Like he should be able to get his way with the rebounds, do some scoring. And then dart play, Jonathan Williams, Anzej Pasinix. These guys are going to just play minutes. They don't have anybody else. And I mean, Jonathan Williams can be a high point per minute performer. Just hasn't gotten a ton of minutes yet. But today could be the day. They do have a little bit more size in Orlando, and they may use him. Garrison Matthews, I think that was kind of a flukish thing, but he's 3,400 and going to see minutes. If Bradley Beal's out, I'd probably include him in my player pool. If Beal, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, man. Simply put, if Beal is everything in this particular situation, if Beal is in, I'm gonna like Beal as well. He's got good history against Orlando. The usage is massive. The minutes will be massive whenever he's playing 37 to 40 minutes a game. So if Beal's in, I'm in. His prices come down. If he's out, that's the only way I'm interested in these ancillary pieces. If he's out, I think IT2 becomes interesting, like you said, especially on FanDuel at 4,600. Troy Brown, of course, we can take a look at again. But Jordan McRae is almost taking somewhat of that Bradley Beal role in terms of shots. Now, you could say, oh, but he's shooting really well from the field. But that's kind of his thing, and he's kind of has been shooting really well from the field. So, with that said, I think that I will, as of right now, the only one I'm interested in is Beal as far as like any substantial ownership. But if Beal were to be ruled out, that's obviously going to have me interested in Isaiah Thomas, Ish Smith, Troy Brown, and probably and more so Jordan McRae. Probably him the most because I would anticipate him to fill some of that void, some of that empty space that Brad Beal's absence has left. With that said, we'll take it to the next game. We've got the Portland Trailblazers visiting the New York Knicks. Total in this game has risen up to 226.5 from 222. Looks like we got a lot of totals on the rise. Portland opened up -4. That stayed there. This is the return of Carmelo Anthony to the Garden. He has played the Knicks earlier, but that was in Portland. With that said, that's the highlight of the day. Paulie D, talk to me about the Portland side.
It is the highlight of the day. Portland always projects well. They just seem to go underpriced by DraftKings. And the Knicks are terrible defensively, so this projects to be a really good spot for them. Hassan Whiteside went for like 50 in Portland against the Knicks, and now Skal Labissiere is out. They don't really have any other bigs, so unless he gets into foul trouble, I think he gets a lot of minutes today, and he's just such a point per minute masher right now. It's hard to see him not making value at his price. Then it's like one of Dame or McCollum. Dame's real expensive. The Garden is a place that shooters like to shoot. He has been kind of hot lately, shooting from outside. I don't mind him or McCollum. I'm like indifferent. I'll have like 10 to 20% of each. Take some shots on Anthony Simons. And then Melo. I think you've got to have some Melo today, like more than you probably want. There's like a chance they just, treat this almost like Kobe Bryant's last game in LA, where go take 30 shots, go, put on a show. It's the holidays. It's, this is where he played the bulk of his career. There's a chance, I don't know, how likely, but if he goes for 50, you're going to just feel like, why? Like it was so obvious, like Melo back in New York. So I think you got to get shares of him. And luckily he's priced in a spot where I don't think he kills you. And if that narrative doesn't go into play, it's, a good spot anyway against the Knicks, and he should have additional motivation. So he feels that his price just kind of like a guy you need to get on this slate. There's just not a ton of good options. And then, we could probably mess around with some of this value now that Scal's out. Is what's his face available today? Henzonia, do we know?
I don't think we got any news yet.
Okay. He's a possibility. Bazemore obviously is a much stronger one. Like Anthony Tolliver, if Henzonia's out, then it'd become Anthony Tolliver. Who seems to be playing more than like Nazir Little these days. Those are just darts, but there's a chance the Blazers blow out the Knicks. I'm really surprised by the 4-point spread. The Knicks have been playing better. So maybe the game does stay close, in which case this should be pretty good for DFS on both sides.
Yeah, with the Portland side, like you'd mentioned, I think Melo, I hate to say it, but I think Melo is probably my favorite. I like all of them. I like all the four guys. But I think as of right now, Melo would be my favorite. A lot of it has to do with his price. I mean, he's playing similar minutes to Damon McCollum. He just hasn't been as efficient. Melo's kind of streaky. We've seen like the last 3 games he's played terribly because he shot terribly. If you look at the games before that, he was smashing because he was shooting well. It's very simple with him. With Scal out, there's a void. Like they kind of need him there. We'll see if Hazonia comes back or not. But either way, I think Melo's path to playing 34 plus minutes, 35 minutes, 36 minutes. He just played 37 minutes against the Suns. So I'm with you. I think I do like Melo. Now you add in the narrative on top of all that. And it makes sense. So yeah, Melo is a guy that I'm going to have a good amount of exposure to on a small slate like this. FanDuel is even cheaper at 5,300. After that, I think I would probably, for me personally, my rankings today is probably like on the Portland side would be Portland. Portland. Melo, McCollum, Whiteside are like neck and neck for me. McCollum because of his price, Whiteside because he's just beasting right now. And then Dame, not that I don't like Dame, I do like Dame. I like all these guys. I like this game. Dame is obviously the most expensive, and there's like you're passing players like Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Ricky Rubio. There's players there. So I will have some Dame, of course, but if I had to rank them for the Portland side, that's what I would rank. But once again, I'll have a lot of Portland exposure. That's just how it's working, and it's only it's a small slate. What am I gonna do? Paulie, talk about the Knicks, man. Have some fun. Talk about the Knicks.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
Yeah, so we know Dennis Smith Jr. is ruled out. Did we hear about Frank Nitti? Did he get
I
ruled
haven't
on?
heard him yet. Just GSJ. That's all.
And Reggie Bullock is available to play.
Oh no, Frank Nitty's available. There is a no. Frank Nitty is available.
Okay, Frank Nitty's available. So, I think in a close game script, we see like ceiling minutes from the starting group, like Elf, Barrett, Marcus Morris, Julius Randle, and probably Mitch Robinson in that case, just because unless he gets into foul trouble, they're going to need him for Hassan. I wouldn't be surprised if Mitch Robinson starts today. And you just kind of want to pair Elf or Barrett with Morris and Randall and a little bit of Mitch Robinson. Bobby Portis's minutes seem to be on the rise. If the game, you can kind of play him in either script. Like the blowout script is the best, where he just gets like 25 to 30 minutes because they get smoked and he just does his thing. But even if he gets like the 22-ish that he's kind of like seen the last few, it's a good spot against Portland, who doesn't have much size. Like when he'll be on the court, it's going to be like Henzonia or Tolliver, and he should just, be efficient. At 4-4, he could be that sneaky value piece that gets you a 7x at 1% that sets you apart. So I think he's interesting. I guess you could say the same for Kevin Knox, although I just think he's much more inconsistent. Damian Dotson, his minutes seem to be on the rise as well, playing 24, 23. Then he played 10, and then 27, 25, 26. And he's just shot like terrible from outside, but that could change in a blink of an eye. He's 3,200. He literally needs to hit 4 threes to make value. He's another guy that you could play, 5% or less of, but be worth grabbing some shares of. But like Elf and Marcus Morris, or Elf and Randall, or all three, is probably my favorite spot to go. And then, a little bit less of RJ Barrett with those guys, but mostly combos and mostly game stacks with Portland.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of these Knicks, except for Marcus Morris, are at that point in price now where you kind of want the game. It's like, before, the probability, it doesn't matter. If the game blew out, they were likely to hit their scores because they were cheap. Now, at least for Elf and for Randall, their prices are up to a point where that's not going to cut it. Like that, the 30, 35, 36 ain't going to cut it. So, for Elf it would. But anyway, I'm with you. I still like them, but a little bit more in a game stacked format, especially with this total rising against Portland. I'm fine with it. So Marcus Morris, Randall, Elf are the main three for me as well. Randall's my favorite from a usage perspective, matchup perspective, all that stuff. It's just his price has increased. On FanDuel, he's 7,500. I like him even more there. But Morris, Randall, Payton are the main three. And I agree, RJ Barrett is a guy you can kind of sprinkle. We were talking about it before the show. It's hard to kind of figure this guy out. Some games he tries to step it up. Some games he gets stepped on. I don't really know. But sprinkle some of him in, of course, and I don't mind getting exposure to some of the centers, but for me mostly it's Morris, Randall, Elf from the Knicks. With that said, we'll kick it on over to the next game. So this next game is pretty important to me personally. I'm curious to hear your thoughts and see what we come up with. But the Minnesota Timberwolves visiting the Milwaukee Bucks. We've got a total that's tanked from 224.5 all the way down to 220.5. The Bucks opened up -18. They're down to -17.5. Still a massive spread for an NBA game. We know we're expecting Jeff Teague to be out. We already know that Wiggins and Towns are definitely out. And then there's still some more question marks. I think Graham missed the last game. We're waiting to hear news on him. Vonleh missed the last game. Waiting to hear news on him. In the meantime, I'm seeing several minute projections for these guys. Like, a lot of places seem to be afraid to take a stand on who's going to play what. And so it's interesting because for us personally, I projected these guys as, like, I'm not taking blowout into account, especially because a lot of these guys are young enough to where they would play in a blowout. Like guys like Culver and some of these guys, who's to say they wouldn't play in a blowout? So that's where I'm at. I'm a little more aggressive with them. I'll admit that the Orlando situation opening up makes it less, like some of these guys, it's like, well, you're going to play this much for Napier, you get Fournier at the same price. So there's some interesting things with the Magic situation. But still, we're looking at a bunch of guys that all their main usage starters are out, and we're looking at guys that should play a lot of minutes, and some of them are still cheap. Paulie, talk about the Minnesota side.
Yeah. We touched on it a little bit at the top of the show, like, very similar to Golden State, where you just have multiple guys extremely underpriced that could be in for some, huge usage and minute increases than they're used to. We're just needing clarity on Noah Vonleh, Trayvon Graham, Josh Okogie, and Jeff Teague. I think Teague's already been ruled out, so just the other three. I think Shabazz Napier, Covington, Gorgie Dieng, Jared Culver right now are just in play regardless of whatever comes out. And then Keelan Martin probably in play right now at 4K. Would help to not have Trayvon Graham there, though. He'd become like a firm, solid cash game-esque type play at his price if Graham's out. And then if Vonleh also is out, then Naz Reid, who is a very good fantasy type player. He's a double-double, big dude who, crushed in the summer league, was just bigger than everybody. And in his first performance, he balled out. They called him up from the G League because Vonleh wasn't going to play, and he went for 24 points in 20 minutes. And, the likelihood of them getting blown out and him getting additional run is just strong today, going against Milwaukee, who probably blows out the most teams in the NBA right now. So we're waiting on those two. But, I love Shabazz. He's going to take a ton of shots. Covington's just like, I'm not thrilled about, but if everything goes right with the current usage that he should see, he could 6-7x. Jared Culver just balled out and, had kind of like fallen out of favor. So he's probably going to be pretty aggressive when he's out there. And he was the number 6 pick in the draft. I think they want to like run plays through him and whatnot. Those three, I think, are super, super safe. Gorgie Dieng, like, I don't think there's a ton of fat on the bone at 6'4", unless the game goes to double overtime like the last like 3 have. But still, like, he feels like his floor is very, very high with the current injury situation. So those guys are great right now. We're waiting to see if we can pull the trigger on guys like Keita Bates-Diop, Keelan Martin, and Naz Reid.
Yeah, I think you hit it. Like, that's kind of where I'm at too. I was more aggressive on the projections with certain guys like Shabazz Napier. I think he plays a lot regardless today. I think the usage is going to look good while he's on the court. Robert Covington is a minutes thing. Like, yeah, maybe if the game's too ugly, he only gets to 28. But I think like 28, 26 is probably his minute floor. He's also one of the guys that takes threes on this team, and that's a situation where you're going to want. So those two guys I'm going to have a good amount of exposure to. I'd like some clarity. Culver would be the close third for me. His price has come up a little bit on FanDuel. These guys are even cheaper. So on FanDuel, I think they'll actually be popular. On DraftKings, they're not projected to be all that popular, considering it's a 4-game slate and they're all banged up. So maybe I'm wrong for wanting to like shred through the fat and try to find, but like I'm going for it, man. I don't think the prices are up that high, and if a blowout were to occur, I am a little worried about some of the guys. But a lot of these guys are young, like the Keelan Martins and the Jared Culvers. They're young. And they're probably still going to have to play because they're missing people. That's the whole point. So Um, I like the Minnesota side. I'll be heavy on them, but it's not a situation like because we have Orlando, because we have other good spots. I'm not like at 60% of everyone. I'm probably more in the 40 range.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like on the
Yep.
lower end core, so that I can mix in the other plays. But whereas yesterday with Golden State, I was definitely 50-60 on all those guys. It was like, let's go. Today I'm a little more on the 40 side. So that's where I'm at. But I will be aggressive and I will play them. And I'm actually surprised and kind of, I guess, happy that their ownerships are coming in pretty low. Talk to me about the Milwaukee side. This is the scarier one if you're worried about a blowout. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely the scarier one. And it's an 18-point spread. So, like, I don't think it's out of line to start expecting and projecting a blowout in this one, right? And, like, can Giannis get there at 11-2 in a blowout? Sure. Like, he's gone for 70 in 30 minutes a few times. But the probability certainly, like, decreases. And there are a handful of studs on the slate that can match him. It's not like yesterday with like Luka and Harden, where it was like, no one even close to get like 60 plus at the same frequency. Today, you got LeBron, you got AD, you got Dame, you got even, some of those guys from Phoenix that have been going for 50s. So, he's got the highest ceiling on the slate, or him and AD, but I'm just nervous that he doesn't play enough. I will have stacks to kind of, protect against that, because if the game does stay close, then both sides just smash. And that's kind of like where I think you want to play Giannis the most, is with a lot of the Minnesota starters. Bledsoe's cheap enough that he could get there. I think he should see a couple minutes increase. Middleton, I'm really not that interested in. Brook Lopez is fine. Illy's fine. Dante DiVincenzo, I think, is a good guy that's going to get minutes in either game script. And that's it. I'm not really that into this. I have just like my 30% allotment of Giannis, which you should always have. A little bit of Bledsoe and some Dante DiVincenzo, and that's probably as far as I go. Maybe I should think a little harder on Illy and Lopez, because it is a really good rebounding spot. But I don't know, like, at their prices and what minutes they're going to play. There's not like any injuries to kind of give them a boost. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, it's tough. It's one thing when you're dealing with guys who are like 4K. It's another thing when those guys have been priced up. But I understand. I think Brolo, I'd be more likely of those two, especially for the block shot, right? Like without Wiggins, without they're missing some of their shooters. So I wouldn't be surprised. Like Culver tries to get to the hole a lot. He just is not very efficient. He's always taking some crazy ass, some some difficult crazy shot. But if he tries to drive to the whole Brolo, we've seen him kind of get block happy. But I don't hate the idea in tournaments to try to get a little different. Ilyasova, even in limited minutes, have been smashing, even when Giannis back. So, with that said, the main play for me is probably Giannis, and I don't love him, to be honest. I mean, like you said, you get your usual 30%. If we liked him a lot, it's a 4-game slate. I'd be real like 50%. I'm just not there. I'm not really there with any of the studs. I kind of want them all around 30. Like 30, 35, something like that, rotate him. But Giannis, because he's got the highest ceiling, I want him at the same time. Like that spread scares me. And again, James Harden, blowout or not, you don't have to worry about it. His coach is going to play him his 30-something minutes regardless. It's not the situation with this coach. He's going to be very cautious with his main guys, and he's going to play everybody deep. With that said, you mentioned DiVincenzo, 4K, knowing that Bledsoe is at least somewhat limited. And, of course, they are, just playing everybody pretty much 23 to 26 minutes. So I think he's an option for sure at his price. But I'm with you, not a ton from this team I want, despite the fact that I like so much from this game. It's all on the other side. All of it. Last game, Paulie, we got the Phoenix Suns visiting the Los Angeles Lakers. We have a 226.5 total, which was the highest on the slate. Now it's tied for the highest with the Knicks, surprisingly. Lakers favored by 11. Let's talk about the Suns.
Yeah, so the Suns are like last year's version of the Nets, where like their record and the way they play against good teams is just better than like you'd expect. And it's like, a group of, even though he plays forward, Oubre, he really kind of plays like a guard, like three guards that are the driving force between Booker, Rubio, and Oubre. They're all just very aggressive. They all take a lot of shots and, um, you know, excel at one other peripheral. Like, it's assists for Rubio, it's, rebounds for Oubre, and I guess like threes and sometimes assists for Booker. But against the Lakers, who have been playing faster, I just expect this to be a fast-paced, high-scoring game that should stay close. I don't think the Lakers are like playing that great lately, and I don't think they just romp Phoenix. So I love Booker at his price. I really like Rubio today. I think like he's kind of like shooken off that little injury he had. He's gone back-to-back games over 40 and just has so many paths to getting there. Like, he may have to get more rebounds today. He'll certainly get assists, and he has shown the aggressiveness, taking shots more so than like in the past. And I think that's just because he like knows he needs to. And then, I think DeAndre Ayton's a sneaky guy who's going to be low owned with major upside, and price came down. Aaron Baines is like a 10% kind of play for me. I just think that, they want to go through Ayton if they can. And what's his name? The small forward that's cheap.
Bridges.
Yeah, Bridges. He seems to be minutes on the rise the last two games, 25, then like 30. Very cheap, 4-game slate. He could be one of those value plays at low ownership that helps you win. So get a little bit of him too.
For sure. Real quick, those of you watching, we appreciate you. Happy New Year to everyone. See all the Happy New Years in the chats. If you can hit that like button, hook it up. Likes go a long way here. We appreciate it. Shout out to the nation. Shout out to the new year. Going back over to the Suns, I'm with you. It's pretty standard at this point, right? Devin Booker, Rubio, Oubre are the main ones you want. Booker continues to be disrespected on both sites with his price. Booker is a streaky type player, so he's on a hot streak right now that could end in any day. I'm with you. I like Booker. I'll have a good chunk of Booker, but I'm tempted. Like, Rubio's the one that I got my eye on also. And I think it's partially because with Booker, at the end of the day, you're still relying on his shooting. Like Rubio, you feel a little more safe with guys like there's a reason that, like, maybe not this year, but in past years when Elf had a real role. We'd look at Elf. We'd look at players like this. Like we're more excited about guards who distribute the ball and grab boards than we are about guards who can score. And so Rubio is one of those guys, and he can score. He has games where he's hot, but for the most part, you're figuring, well, at least he can get some assists. At least he'll do other things. So I'm with you, man. I do like them. A late night hammer action against the Lakers. I think they could surprise everybody and play this kind of close. But especially considering that AD and LeBron are both kind of banged up at the moment. But Booker, Rubio, Oubre are the main three. I don't mind sprinkling some DeAndre Ayton. I couldn't find anything else. I mean, he only played like 20 minutes in his last game off the bench, but he did get into foul trouble like right away. So that maybe he would have played 28, 29 had he not gotten into that foul trouble. So definitely think that could be sneaky at low ownership. Paulie, let's go to the Lakers side.
Yeah, the Lakers side's not that exciting for me outside of game stacks where this game could just, be significantly higher scoring and faster paced than the rest. I do like Kyle Kuzma a lot at 4-6. Like, he's finally starting to get going. He's, getting usage rates into the 30s when he's on the court, and now he's been on the court for like 25 to 30 minutes every game in the last 7 or 8 games. Can get some rebounds, can get some peripherals, but it's mostly going to come down to how well he shoots. I think the volume will be there. It's just a matter of if he does well or not. And then, like, against a team like Phoenix, a couple more rebounds because they don't have much size. A handful more steals and blocks could all kind of, get him to be one of the highest point per dollar plays on the slate if he does have a good day shooting. LeBron and AD, I don't know. I think LeBron is a little bit dealing with injury. He's had a couple off games, and Rondo being there doesn't have to do as much. He's not on the court as much. And then AD's clearly dealing with some injury and just not being as aggressive. He's on the injury report almost every day. Like, he projects super well, and he could have a monster game here. But I kind of feel like they're healthy. They're going to kind of spread out the minutes a little bit. It's like the middle of the season, and they need to just get to the playoffs. They don't need to be the first place in the West kind of thing. So I'm more kind of like interested in some of the weird value plays like Danny Green, Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo, maybe even KCP. Um, and think like LeBron and AD fall into like the same Damian Lillard category. Like you got to have because they have the highest ceilings on the slate. But I'm not really excited about any one of them. Same thing with Giannis. They're just all there, and I know I'll be able to get them because of all the value. But none of them really get me that excited. It's just I like the game more than I like the side.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm not, like I said, I'm not crazy about any of the studs. With that said, I respect the raw points, like, and what that could mean on a slate like this. So, I think I'll have more LeBron and AD than I'll have Giannis, just because they're cheaper. So if I say all three go for 50 or 55, it means a little bit more for the Laker guy because they're cheaper. So I'll have more of them. But I agree, it's not a situation where I'm like, this is a smash spot. It is a smash spot. It's just you got two guys who are dealing with injury. Again, I'll have the most of them from this team. I will have 35, 40% of these guys. But it's more about raw points. It's not necessarily that I'm like thrilled about the expected, point per dollar return. But with that said, I agree with you. I think that while they are cheap, so are their teammates. Kyle Kuzma is very cheap. Should play, 27-ish minutes. Rondo getting around 18 to 20, and he's the kind of person that at 4K he could go for 25 to 30 DraftKings points in 18, 19 minutes if he's doing well. And maybe they give him more. He does have some ceiling. And I like the centers. This is a great spot for the centers. JaVale McGee, I'm a little nervous about because his minutes are really low. But Dwight Howard's getting around 19 a game, and he's got a history of just doing dirties to these guys. So I actually don't mind Dwight Howard as one of those like value plays you work in. We did get the Bradley Beal news. Looks like Bradley Beal will play. So that's interesting. It's we got about 32 minutes to lock right now, right? We just heard that Brad Beal is going to be in. What do you think as far as ownership? He wasn't projecting to really be owned much. So do you think, okay, it was announced late enough to where he's going to be really low owned, or do you think, hey, this is going to lower Devin Booker's ownership a little bit, or like just for example, like Damian Lillard even?
I think most people thought he was going to play, so this news isn't going to change much in terms of what the projections look like. And who is projecting to be very popular? I honestly haven't even looked at ownership today.
Yeah, it's kind
of the studs.
Of the studs, AD and LeBron, I think, were the main two. That seemed to be a consistent thing. Yeah, LeBron and AD.
Yeah. Beal would probably be my favorite. So I'm happy to be overweight on him. But I think, because he practiced in full yesterday, like I don't think this news is a surprise, and I don't think it really makes that much difference.
Fair enough. But yeah, that's it as far as the Lakers go for me. I'll be working in Rondo, Kuzma, Dwight Howard with the two studs. That's going to do it for the game by game. Normally position by position, but with small slates, it's just easier as I'm doing these projections to do it that way. If you want to check out the WiseTake Nation projections, go check them out. They're updated as of now. We'll be waiting for more news to see if there's any changes we have to make. With that said, Paulie, we'll do some Q&A in a second, but before we start building our teams and everything, I did notice that with the Magic by far are projecting the best, even better than the Minnesota players. Now, I wasn't overly aggressive with the Minnesota players, so there's some room for that to be improved. But on the it looks like we got some news here. Giannis available to play. Wesley Matthews is out. So there you go. Knox and Dotson available to play. But anyway, talk to me about what do you think is like the Magic, right? We know Gordon's out. Where are you at? Because surprisingly, from what I see with ownership, I'm not seeing a ton of Magic players aside from like Vooch and like Ross because he's cheap.
Yeah, I think that's where there's some edge on the slate. Fournier, Isaac, Fultz, DJ Augustine, who are probably all going to be low owned, all getting nice usage increases, should see solid minutes with Beal playing. I think the game stays closer. I like that. I like Honestly, Terrence Ross is probably my least favorite. Um, so I'm happy to see him as one of the more popular ones. Like, I'm a big Terrence Ross fan. I think that he needs a more like Devin Booker-ish role to really excel, but I think he's got that in him. He just hasn't found the team that's willing to use him that way. And I play him a lot more than the field usually, but man, it's been a while since he's had like one of those blow up games. And this Magic coach doesn't seem to really want to last year it was like closing games and more involved. Like Markelle Fultz, I guess maybe a rival has kind of like gotten in his way of that. And I'm glad he's chalk. I mean, I think he's safe for like 5x. I'd play him in cash if I was playing, but I don't know like how much probability of a GPP upside situation there is. But I'll get a little of him. But it's really like everyone else on the team that I want, and we know like they're really only going to play 7 guys deep. So it's you just get a lot of all of them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm finding myself. I actually went back, updated the article just to let the nation know that I'm finding myself higher on the Magic than I anticipated, because of the situation. Oh, and just a quick heads up: Terrence Ross did actually close in that last game with when Gordon got hurt. Oh no, when Gordon got hurt, he closed.
The Hawks game, he didn't though.
That's what I had, and all of a sudden I can't find. When was that game?
2 days ago.
Why can I not find it? Oh, okay, I see. It's because Popcorn Machine hasn't updated since December 31st. Oh, no. What am I talking about? That's yesterday. 2 days ago. I'm not seeing it.
They played Atlanta 2 days ago.
Atlanta, Chicago,
Did
on
they
the
play?
28th?
Yeah, it should have been the 30th.
Oh, they don't have the 30th up here. It goes from 29th to 31st. I guess we'll never know. Popcorn Machine, man. What's up? You slacking? You just straight up skip a day? We don't skip days. You don't skip days in this. Did I not know? Let me see if the nation has any. Nothing in the Ystream chat. I'll look at some questions here and then we'll start building some. Another question about cash and DFS. Yo, some consistency, bro. We're not gonna talk about cash and DFS every single show. I'll do it just one last time because this one person is relentlessly asking about them. But we've addressed this in several shows. So how big of a cash and DFS fan are you? If you've missed the last 20, 30 times we've said on these shows, you missed his farewell show that we had last year. How big of a fan are you? Is it more like I watch you once every 2-3 months and I miss you when because we've said it several times on a lot of these shows. I've even gone and commented and replied to comments about it. And so I'm going to address it again. Cash and DFS couldn't do it no more, bro. You ain't got the time, man. Dude works a crazy job, right? He works deep into the night. And he decided he couldn't do it. He's got a family and shit. He's got work. He couldn't do it. Sucks. We want him back too. We love him. We love Cash. But it's a funny thing to me. And I'm not trying to shit on nobody. I'm just joking. I'm not trying to single nobody out either. Like, we love Cash too. Me and you ask, me and you wonder how he's doing. We send him every once in a while, check on him and all that. But I always wonder because, like, I'll address it, right? And then, like, we had a farewell show. We had discussions leading up to the farewell show about it. And then the first few shows we did after we left, we talked about it. And so to me, it's like these people are like, how big of a fan is you if you missed all that? Like, you missed all of it. In the beginning of this season, I talked about how he's not here and everything. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's just like, but anyway, it's all good. But unfortunately, he couldn't, he had to stop. That's one thing I never thought he would have stopped. I always said he'd never stop, but eventually he had to stop.
Yeah, life happens,
bro. Life happens. I give him credit for lasting as long as he did with his schedule and his family, and it's not easy, man.
On a more serious note, like Fantasy Cruncher is really fucking like not operating optimally for me. Is it giving you any trouble?
Why? What's it doing?
It's just like I click on like trying to isolate a team, or I just try to isolate a position, and it just freezes, and I have to reset. And it's like doing the dirt.
No, it's working fine for me.
Yours working all right?
Computer issue. Yeah. Maybe you might have to do the reboot ski, bro.
Verbutski, yeah,
You know what I
early
mean?
enough.
Yeah, you got time.
But
You pull it
I
off
don't know.
now. You gotta pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait too much longer. Oh, this is funny. So somebody asked a question, and YouTube held it for review, probably because of the name. No, Josh, it's all good, bro. There's nothing to apologize for, bro. I just figured I'd address it because a few people had asked. But it's all good, homie. No problems whatsoever. Anyway, so YouTube blocked this question because they probably thought it was a racist question. But the question was Whiteside or Vooch. And YouTube like held it for review, like, yo, I don't know about this. This dude's talking about a Whiteside.
That's hilarious.
Like, that's funny.
Yeah. Whiteside.
Yeah, I wanna. It was Whiteside for me. Vooch is getting closer.
Yeah.
With the, you know.
Yeah. It's they're both like, I would say they project almost like neck and neck. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
they do.
They're both going to project for like 48.
Yeah.
Like that's like what they should, you know. So
like a Toyga.
I think I'd get both of them around 30% today.
Yeah. Oh, that's where I'm at. Yeah. Yeah. Those are the, you know, big baller centers right there. Let me ask you for the Magic players, where are you at with? I'm gonna ask you about four of them. So talk to me about Evan Fournier, Vooch, Isaac, and Fultz.
Okay. It's like an amazing spot for Vooch, you know, so I think you just got to get like 30 to 40 of him. Isaac and Fultz, I think, have like tournament winning upside at low ownership. Fournier, you can probably add to that category. I think he'll be a little higher owned than those two, and his price is higher than like Fultz is, but he's probably the most consistent for like 6x. He just probably doesn't have much more than that. Where like I think Fultz has like a 40.8x game in him, and I think Isaac can go for like 55 when all like the peripherals kind of come together. So Vooch is like a 40% guy. Isaac and Fultz, I think, are going to be like 25 to 30, and like Fournier more like 25 to 20.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm with it. Isaac's been balling on a budget, but balling nonetheless.
Any time now, Minnesota, if you can, you know, Minnesota's been the worst team this year for news, DFS, after lock news, all kinds of, you know, they just blow. They'll do a pump fake, you know, like Jared Culver's starting, then Napier starts, like all kinds of fuck shit. So I would like them to just give it to us now, you know.
Oh yeah, man.
Because you know,
that's important information. You know what I mean? So
some of these ownerships are going to change drastically for me if, you know, XYZ players not in.
It's kind of a big deal, bro.
Yeah, Noah Vonleh is really big for me because I think Naz Reid is just going to do the dirty if he's out.
Dirty living, dirty styles. I can get behind that.
If Noah Vonleh gets ruled out, Naz Reid is probably going to be my highest owned value play on the slate.
That's just dirty. You know that? It's just dirty. Rocco likely on Giannis, so they give you any worry. A little bit, Webster. Webster was asking about Covington guarding Giannis. Yeah, there's a little bit of concern with the foul trouble. One thing I like about Covington, though, is like in the last game, he didn't play well, but he had 5 fouls about like a quarter into the fourth quarter. He picked up his 5th foul, and he finished not only the fourth quarter, he didn't come out of the game, but he also finished all of overtime. So he does seem to kind of know when he needs to really scale it back. Now, unfortunately, that makes him less aggressive on the other end. But he does see. I've seen him do this before with the Sixers and different teams. Not every time. It doesn't always work. But I've seen him kind of navigate through foul trouble. Because he is a guy that's going to play defense. He's going to try to play defense. He's not like just a one-sided player. He's what you call mediocre. Right? Like he does a little bit of everything fairly well. He's a pretty good defender. He's a pretty good shooter, but not great. Pretty good rebounder, not great. He's mediocre. But yeah, it gives me some concern. But again, like it's more about in context to the slate. I do think that it's interesting now with Melo and with Isaac opening up. I think the conversation gets a little bit more strict though. So I get what you're saying. Here's another question from Webster Wiggler. If you're projecting for like a Milwaukee blowout, what about Connaughton? Is he a decent play?
I think so. Like you're thinking back to like a week ago when Giannis and Bledsoe were out, and like he got onto that second unit. They got a lot of guys on that team that could play in blowout time. Like DiVincenzo, George Hill, Kyle Korver, Wesley Matthews is out, so that's a little help. But Bledsoe is around, Giannis is around. Like I don't know how many minutes he's gonna get until the blowout. So like I wouldn't have more than like 5% of him.
30s.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I would actually agree with that. Number one, because he's going to be so low owned anyway that, you got to have 5% end up overweight, But at the end of the day,
yeah.
One thing that I think could help some people is I think it takes multiple approaches. Obviously, nobody has the one right recipe every single night. But I do think that some people have a problem sometimes like justifying probability, in the situations. So, even though the blowout may be probable, is his usage or minutes in that blowout guaranteed? Is that probable? You know what I mean? And so just think about it from that perspective. Not to say you shouldn't play him at all because of that, but think about it. Like match the exposure with the probability of that happening, of him smashing and winning a tournament, him specifically. What's the probability that a player like him, smashes and wins a tournament? It's probably 10% or less, right? Maybe.
Yeah, less I think,
yes,
5%.
I gave a conservative answer because, it's like that.
Hedge life. Because hedge life.
Hedge life all day. What are you gonna do? You know how we do it.
So with Beal in, what's your like exposures to the other Washington Wizards?
So, honestly, not much. I'm not terribly interested in the rest. Number one, because now that I'm playing Beal, I'm playing a good chunk. I got like 35% Beal or something like that. So I really need him to do the dirty. The Magic play slow, and they're not the you know what I'm saying? Like, if he was out, I would have been playing 4 or 5 Washington Wizards on a team. But with him in, he's really the only one I'm interested in, to be honest. I just want him to do everything. Because other than that, if you go to the other side of that game, you have better plays in the same game on the other side at similar prices. You know what I mean? For players that but McRae's role is no longer guaranteed. You don't know if he's gonna get 35 minutes. You know damn well Fournier is getting 37 minutes today. Like he is. You know what I mean? Like same Brysington.
Yep.
10 and 10 and 10.
I think John Mahimi would be the next most interested in Wizards.
Yes, I agree with you on that. Yeah, Augustine is popping mortals right now, son. He's popping mortals. All the Magic players just rose to the top. Like in our projections, it's like a bunch of Magic players with some Minnesota players worked in, then the Portland players. Plays.
What exposure do you have Carmelo at?
Right now, I got like 35. I am about to move some things around just because of the stuff that's opened, and so I'm about to do the dirty with that as we got 15 minutes, nation. I'm going to flip over to the injury feed. I don't know why I didn't do that already. Flip into the injury feed. This is a Slack channel for injuries that we have for our WiseTake Nation subscribers. Monthly memberships or higher get access to our Slack chat. We have all different kind of channels in which you communicate, and channels where you just shut up and just accept the news that comes in. And what you're looking at now is one of those. So accept the news that comes in. We'll continue to we'll try to answer some questions, nation. Keep in mind that we are building our teams as the stream. So if there's any news that comes in, we'll keep you updated. Other than that, things get weird sometimes, and sometimes it gets a little quiet. But it gets a little quiet sometimes. Sometimes it gets a little weird. People get a little crazy, and that's it. But if there's news, you'll know. Oh, I gotta say, bro, the live stream you did with Steve Saturday, that was. You know what your problem is, Stevie? You don't listen. You don't listen. That was. Stevie was just like, hey, man, like I listen. Like, just, hey, man, what the fuck, bro? I listen, bro. What's your problem, Miss Stevie? You don't listen.
These kids these days, these millennials,
true.
you know.
How much Augustine and Fultz, like, how much, like, do you like one more than the other?
I like them both fairly the same. I'm allowing up to 30% of either. I'll see what I get.
I like that. I does. I does, though.
$13 to black. Who are going to be like your top 5 highest owned plays?
I'm not even there yet. I can tell you it's going to be a combination of Minnesota players and Orlando players. The Knicks starting lineup is out. They are starting Gibson at the 5 still.
Okay.
So Whiteside is going to start off in an even better situation than we may have anticipated. Anticipation for the nation. Fournier. Big city of dream. I think of Fournier. I know. Who do you like more, Booker or Beal?
They're probably going to be 2 of my highest owned players. Probably Beal, just because, like, you know, like you, I'm going to have a lot of Orlando.
Yeah,
so
it just makes sense to have at least
it just
that one.
makes a little more sense. Yeah. And, you know, I like you as well. I also kind of like Rubio better than Booker today.
Right.
I think those will be my 2 highest shooting guards.
I'm different. How much Melo are you looking to play today? Bah.
I'm gonna allow it to give me up to 40. What's he projecting for ownership wise?
I don't think it was that high. Let me go to power for 25%, 26%, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Like not.
So if I'm at 40, I'm like comfortably above the field. That's kind of where I want to be.
Yeah, I feel you. On that. Feel you on that. Mia Magra. Lead him aside. See what we getting at.
It did not want to give me very much Giannis, interestingly enough.
Yeah, I guess because some of the mid-tier plays are the ones that are Poppington. You know what I mean? It's just a guess. Just a guesstimation. Wow. Guesstimation for the nation. All that was, all that will be, everything.
Yeah, back. Well, I can hear you. You just can't see me. Oh, but we ain't on camera anyway. We can do the dirt.
Say nothing. Nobody would even know.
I could have just done the dirty myself.
Done the dirty to yourself, and nobody would have had any clue. They would have just let you be. They let him be. It'll be all right.
I think that's so funny that YouTube flagged the Whiteside.
Yeah, right. That was funny. That was good. I didn't say nothing wrong.
We're probably gonna get suspended from YouTube
Yeah, I
now
know.
because of Hassan Whiteside.
Let's see, a couple questions. It's 9 minutes to lock, so after this, I gotta rush in and start building. But would you go Dame or AD on FanDuel?
Dame or AD on FanDuel? I guess AD over there, like blocks and steals are worth more. I think point guard's deeper. So if I was building one, I had to make that decision. I'd go AD. Although I do think Dame is more probable for like a 60 than AD today.
His project.
Normally, I don't think that.
I missed one. I'm pretty good at finding sneaky plays, but I suck at putting it all together. Any advice? Mix those sneaky plays with the optimal plays. Not just saying go find who's the highest owned. Figure out who the optimal play is and why. If player X is out and he projects for XYZ with this player out and he's projected for XYZ minutes, then again look at it from a probability perspective, right? Like mix those. It's great that you could find those crazy low owned ones, but you wanna. It's not about playing them instead of the chalk all the time. Sometimes it's about playing them with the chalk to make you different.
Yeah, like you don't need to play those like off the wall plays at a higher ownership than like you need to. Like it only takes one of those. So like usually those guys are the real risky ones. So if you have like this pool of like off the wall guys, 3 may be the best plays on the slate, but 5 may just be terrible and it'll ruin you overall. So like, take those optimals and still keep them as like the bulk of your exposure, and those off the wall ones, you really don't need more than like 20% of most of the time.
Completely agree. So it's about putting them together. And if you're looking at your team and like every single player in your lineup is 2% owned, you're doing something wrong. You shouldn't have a bunch of like 2%ers on one team. There should be a couple mixed in with some actual good plays. I'm not clarify. I'm not saying go look up ownership and play the chalkiest players. It's not. Don't even worry about that. Worry about who do you like, who do you genuinely like, and then you can work in those wacky guys that you feel confident about. In with them, and of course, do the dirty for the dirties under you. Is Culver projecting as a good play on FanDuel for sure? On DraftKings, he's like right on the border. He did get bumped down a little bit just in terms of the Orlando guys passing him, but I'm still playing a good amount of him. CK do you like Rondo at all tonight? I do. Not like 30% like Rondo, but like 10 to 20%, sure, somewhere in that range. Boom. That's all the questions there. Stream Nation. How much Vooch? We have a couple questions here. My bad. So, is tonight a weird small slate where you don't need raw points from studs? I think it's probably the other way around a little bit, right? Like,
the opposite.
Small slates, you typically do need the raw points from the studs. Can you detail why you like Kuzma tonight? It's from Webster Wiggle.
Yeah, look at his usage rates along with the minutes he's been playing, and like if there's any truth to like AD shoulder issue, like that kind of explains why he's being so aggressive. And 25 to 30% usage at 4-6, getting 25 to 30 minutes. That's like you play that all the time. That's like the highest probability of being the best values on the slate.
30s and 7s. How much Vooch? He's MG's highest exposed player.
I think you can get between 30 and 40 of Vucevic. I mean, it's a super smash spot. Washington's been terrible to bigs, giving up the most rebounds per game and the third in pace and like number one in points allowed. Like, I think he went for 60 against them recently. Like, there's nothing not to like about Vooch. Aaron Gordon's out. Usage increase. Less rebounds taken away. Go for it, MG.
Oh. All right, 4 minutes to lock, Nation. That's it for the questions. For now.
Time to do the dirty.
Dirty indeed. 30 indeed. How much Booker you got?
38.
38. I'm a little more spread out than I usually am. I'll admit that on this slate. Like most of the highest I have is like 40 percenters right now. So I'll admit I'm a little more spread out than usual. But I'm alright with that. It's a 4-gamer. Three minutes to lock. Get it in there. What did I just do? That's not what I meant to do. Whatever it was.
Yeah.
Two minutes to lock, nation. 2 minutes to lock. Boom. That's how it's done, son. No news. Everything was old school. It was all in the old school. All the stuff they did way back when. Nation, once again, appreciate you guys rocking with us on the first slate of 2020. A little quiet, obviously, but we will get things rolling as always. Back at it tomorrow. We'll have the projection show. I'm assuming one of these days we got to have a monster slate because we have had a lot of these smaller ones, which I've appreciated, but you just get the feeling that we're due for one of those monstrosities now that the holidays have passed. So let's take a look.
Yeah.
Yep, tomorrow's a pretty big slate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Really?
6, 7, 8, 9 games. So bigger than we've gotten lately. We will be excited providing all the content. Core 4 video will be out later. Game by game stream midday tomorrow, and then of course the live stream once again with Paulie and myself with a regular lock time of 7 p.m. Eastern. Regular. Paulie, anything you want to say to the nation before we get up out of here, bro?
Your work is not done. Waiting on the Minnesota news to make some pretty major adjustments. So,
Boom.
Don't touch that dial.
Well, yeah, on FanDuel your work is done, right? Like on FanDuel, you're just gonna hope for the best and prepare for the worst and all that good stuff. But on DraftKings, I agree, your work isn't done. We're still waiting on important news, especially from the Minnesota side. So be ready to make your dirties, to do your dirties and bring your wipes and diapers and all that good stuff. With that said, we're going to get up out of here. It's lock. Be on the lookout for the news for Minnesota to make your adjustments accordingly. For Paulie D, for myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, one more Happy New Year. And as always, good luck.